We had some excellent conference championship games this weekend. Let's talk about them.
Conference championship week is in the books, and we are back on the Big Mountain, where we bring you a detailed focus on the Big Ten and the Mountain West.
Hey, it's good to have you here on the mountain. If you're new, I am JY, and this is my good friend Steve. We are through championship week here for college football. We actually made 7 picks on championship games. We want to break down all 7 of those games. We're actually going to start, we're going to do something a little different on the mountain. We are going to start with the PAC-12 championship game. A, because it was a game you and I both picked, and B, because it was a hell of a game.
Yeah, and 3, C.
Okay.
Because both of these teams are going to be in the Big Ten next year.
That's very true. That's very true. So you probably already have seen this. Washington wins 34-31. Just another awesome game. You know, they two games that they played this year, both fantastic football games. A lot of people were really high on Oregon coming into this. They were a 9.5-point favorite coming in, which you and I both thought that was a bit nuts.
Yes.
And Washington just pulled it off. I have some stats here, but what was your first takeaway on the game, Steve?
So it basically went in some. We got the pick right. We both got the pick right.
Yes.
But it went basically somehow we got the pick right, but it went the exact opposite of what we thought. So, that was my first takeaway.
Right.
Was how did this happen?
Right. Yeah. So I took them as a super early line, getting 7.5. You took them a couple days before the game, getting 9.5, which is where the line ended up. So easily covered. Washington won outright. I actually had said on the pick episode, I kind of liked Oregon on a money line pick if you wanted to go money line, but my pick was for the points with Washington there. 20-10 at the half, just a really good first half for Washington, specifically on the defensive side. I mean, they really held Oregon in check.
Yeah, Washington came out and they established that this was their game. This was their championship. They kind of grabbed them by the throat right away. And yes, the game, Oregon got their counter swings later and the score ended up tight. Right. But Washington really came out and made a statement. And I think they won this game basically in the first quarter.
I totally agree. They seemed like they were in control the entire time. And as you say, then Oregon did come back. They scored the 2 touchdowns in the third quarter. So they actually take the 24-20 lead. Yep. But you put it on the back of Penix, and he comes through again, showing why he probably should be one of the, if not the front runner, in my opinion, for the Heisman Trophy. He finished 21 of 34, 239 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. I'm sorry, that was Nix. 21, 34, 239, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. Penix, 27 of 39, 319 yards, 1 touchdown, and 1 interception. But both of them played phenomenal games.
Absolutely. And the thing with Penix, and what's funny is, if we go back to what we said in the immediate aftermath of the first game, because this game ended up being very similar.
Yes.
And then different times we discussed them in the rankings. I said I trusted when the game is close, I trusted Penix a little bit more. I love both of these quarterbacks.
Yes.
I'm really happy for Bo Nix, the great season he's had, and if they would have won this game, he probably would be the front runner for the Heisman.
Right.
So I'm incredibly happy for him. But again, like I've said a few times this year, when the games are close, I just trust Penix a little more because he's done it time and time and time again. The first time I really that Penix came on my radar basically was that Indiana-Penn State game, which I still say he was a little bit short, but you know what? 4th and goal was like from the 10-yard line or something to win the game, or maybe it was a 2-point conversion now, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
He took the team on his back and went and scored the touchdown, whatever. And since he's been at Washington, he's just done that time and again.
Yeah.
The only knock on him has been, when you've played these other teams, maybe you weren't quite as impressive as Nix or some other. Well, the thing is the style that DeBoer coaches and Penix kind of embodies that is we are going to do whatever it takes to win the game. And that's what he does time and again, even against these great opponents. Oregon, fantastic team. Twice in a row, they get into a tight battle with this great Oregon team. Twice in a row, Penix puts the team on his back, scores a late touchdown, or comes up with a play when it's needed, and they win the game again twice in a row.
Well, and now that we got the quarterbacks out of the way, because they came into the game being the headline, coming out of the game, of course, they're the headline. You've got two of the top quarterbacks. I have two stars of the game that are neither quarterback that I want to talk about right now. And we talked about how dominating Washington really was in the first half. And my first star of two is the offensive line. Really both lines, but the offensive line was dominant in the first. Oh my goodness, in the first half. Played great the whole game, but specifically the first half. You want to know why they looked as good as they did, specifically on offense? That O-line was incredible in the first half. Yes. D-line was great, too, on the other side of the ball. But the O-line just really stood out for me.
I totally agree. And there was a lot of talk coming into this game that about how Oregon had the better lines. Well, that did not show up in this game. No. Really kind of didn't show up in the first game because I remember Washington being able to run the ball pretty consistently in the first game. And yes, like you mentioned, beginning of this game, they just ate Oregon up. Physically dominated them.
Yep.
I actually thought Oregon may just kind of throw up the white flag at one point, like that this was going to get out of hand.
Yeah.
When they were up, I think it was at the 20-3 at one point.
Yes, I thought that sounds right. Yep.
Yeah. And I think we're going to talk about more what happened after that. But when it gets to 20-3, the way they were dominating, I'm thinking, wow, this game could just get out of hand and Oregon could surrender.
Well, the next guys I need to talk about, not my second star, if you will, of the game, but I was really high on the receivers of specifically Washington. I mentioned both had really strong receivers, but I said how much I like Ondunze. He's over 100 yards, 102 yards. And McMillan, back to being healthy, and they mentioned on the broadcast how his brace didn't have his brace on anymore, 131 yards. He looks outstanding as well. You look at the other side of the ball, Franklin, 4 receptions for 34 yards, and Johnson, 5 receptions for 68 yards. So Washington with 2 receivers over 100 yards, the highest receiver for Oregon, 68 yards.
Yeah, so I want to give, I'd like to give Bo Nix a little bit more love. I'm talking about him. He, even in a losing effort, he is one of my stars of the game. When they were down 20-3, they got the ball, they were 23 or 20-6 at one point. Late in the first half, they got the ball back. He led them straight down the field for I think they got the ball back with like 2 minutes to go or something in the first half. Drives them down the field. They score a touchdown. It was either that drive or the first drive in the first half. He had a play where he kind of rolled to his right and found a guy open in the middle, and just the way he moves and makes quick decisions and just fires it on the move.
Yeah.
I thought he was fantastic. He was great. And I know I keep saying I trust Penix more, so Oregon fans take that as a shot at Bo Nix. It's not that.
Yeah.
Bo Nix is awesome. He's amazing. He's turned it around, and really he was one of my stars of the game. The way he put that when they were down like that and could have quit, could have surrendered.
Yeah.
He put the team back on his back and brought them back. Those really, really important points at the end of the second half and end of the first half and beginning of the second half made this a game again, and instead of a blowout.
Agreed. And let's talk about rushing, because the number one rusher for the Oregon Ducks, Bo Nix.
Yep.
So James has 35 yards and Irving has 20 yards. Bucky Irving, 9 carries for 20 yards. Just that's not going to cut it in a championship game. And your quarterback, 6 carries for 69 yards. Yep. Now, he did have that one huge down the sideline play, which clearly inflates those numbers. But he had that play. He made that play happen. Yes. So to piggyback on that, I want to get to my second star. Or you want to go in on that?
I just would say, and I think that long play led to one of those 2 touchdowns, either the end of the first half or beginning of the second half.
I believe it was in the beginning of the second half. I remember. I watched so much football. I'm trying to make sure I'm keeping these together. But my second star of the game here, Dylan Johnson. Wow.
Yeah.
On all fast. Now, you're going to look at the yards. You're going to look at the TDs. I get it. 28 carries, 152 yards, 2 touchdowns. But again, in the first half, his pickup of the blitz against Oregon, one-on-one, the linebacker or whoever they're blitzing is one-on-one, and he's taking the guy out. That's the unsung hero stuff that doesn't get you the stat lines. It doesn't get you any of that. He blew me away with how, not only his running, but how he was picking up the blitz, giving Penix the time, so he didn't have to be running around like Bo Nix was needing to run around. Massive props. I give him number 1 star, Dylan Johnson. Again, not just for his stat line, but for what else he did in picking up blitzes and everything he did in that game. He was phenomenal.
And if I remember correctly, the first game he was also dominant. Towards the end of the game when Washington had to get drives going, because at one point in the first game, Penix was a little bit beat up, and they relied on him.
Yes.
And again, this game again, us and a lot of other folks were talking about all of these great skill position players and other players that Oregon has, but the players for Washington just stepped it up again this time. Second time in a row against Oregon.
Really happy they're now in the college football playoffs. We're going to do another episode on specifically that and bowls and all that kind of stuff. But I think, given these 2 games against Oregon, clearly the right team from the PAC is in the college football playoffs. I'm really anxious to see what they're going to do there. Really excited for them.
And they're finally kind of getting healthy again. And that was a big part of the second half of the season of why maybe they didn't look so impressive.
Yeah.
They had players out. They had, a lot of injuries. They kind of finally just got healthy for this game. And now they have, I think, 3.5 weeks or so, about a month.
Yep.
To continue to get even healthier, where they'll be running hopefully then as a finely tuned machine. So I'm excited as well.
Yeah. So, hey, we gave that one a great once-over. It was worthy of our first reaction. I want to go to you now. You have the Big Ten. You have the ACC. So Go for it, Steve.
So I'm going to start with the Big Ten. Both of us, we with the Washington game, we both picked Washington plus the points, and it was a winner for both of us. But we were kind of slightly wrong on how the game would play out. This one, we had it pegged exactly.
But as a bettor,
yes,
I couldn't care less.
Exactly.
I just want to win the damn bet.
I'm with you. But this one, not only did we pick a winner, but it went pretty much exactly how we thought it would and how we said it would. The first half, Michigan, we said it was going to be a defensive battle, low-scoring game, but that Michigan in a second half would just pull away. They're just more talented. They're a better team. Both teams like to do the same thing. They like to run the ball, try and be dominant, and then play really good defense. And really, that was the tale of the first half. Iowa played out of their mind on defense. Yep. They were hitting JJ from the very beginning, very similar to that Penn State game, which I'm really having some concerns with Michigan's offensive line. In the Penn State game, their right tackle was just getting eaten alive by Chop Robinson.
Yep.
Ohio State game, they lose. I think his name is Zinter or Ginter. They're All-American. I think offensive guard, interior lineman.
Okay.
Just a really amazing player. And their line Iowa was beating them. The Iowa defensive line was beating up the Michigan offensive line. And hitting JJ. JJ was running for his life again. It looked a lot like that first half of the Penn State game.
Yeah.
Michigan did find a way to get a touchdown. I think it was a punt return for a touchdown. It was definitely a kick. And so they found a way to get a touchdown. They got a field goal. They go into the half leading 10-0. And just over the second half, just wear them down. There was really nothing impressive about what Michigan did.
Yeah.
It's just they're better. They have more players that are just better than Iowa's players, especially on the offensive side of the ball. So they end up covering. The line was 21.5, and I think it was at 23-0. I think was the final, or
23 or 24. I can't,
something like that.
Yeah.
So they covered. They did basically exactly what we thought they would do, but really. Not that I was very impressed with the Iowa defense, and Iowa just is overmatched. Their offense, they just have nothing. So I was very impressed, and they pretty much did what they thought we would do. But I was not so much impressed with Michigan. And I still had them, and we're going to talk about another episode. But I still have them as my number one team.
Yeah.
But really, how they looked against that Iowa defense gives me some pause on how they're going to do when they get into the playoff.
Yeah. Well. I did not watch the first half at all. I know you were. You sent me a text basically saying exactly what you just said about how the game was going. I was able to watch some of the second half, and you broke it down well. The one thing that really stuck out to me was, and I haven't watched, this was probably the first time I watched Iowa all year. My goodness, their receivers couldn't catch a turkey on Thanksgiving.
Yeah. Yep.
Like, poor Hill, not the greatest quarterback back there. But he's at least getting it to his receivers. Sometimes a little behind. I mean, not perfect passes, but he's getting it there. We're a 10-2 team in the Big Ten.
Yep.
These guys should be catching the ball, and all of them were dropping it.
Yep.
I mean, they couldn't catch a ball at all in the second. Now, at that point, it was, I think, maybe 17-0, I believe. But still,
I mean, if they score a touchdown, they're 17-7. They have some life.
I was shocked how horrible the receivers' play was.
That's been the story all year. Iowa's offensive line isn't too bad, and their starter at the beginning of the season at quarterback not too bad, and Deacon Hill, the backup, he is what he is. He's an Iowa backup quarterback. Yeah. So he's exactly, when you say that phrase, he's exactly what you expect from that. But you're absolutely right. The receivers were awful. They're all of their offensive skill position players in general. Every now and then they'll break a run or whatever, but they're just overmatched when they play these really good Big Ten East teams. Now their tight end, I think his last name is All or Auk. I think it's All.
Okay.
They had a really good tight end that was hurt earlier in the season.
Okay.
He would have been their star offensive player, and then really their most dynamic player on the team as far as the guy who was and we talked about this in the pregame, Cooper DeJean.
Yes, right.
Who was he was a safety. That dude, whether it was an interception return for a touchdown or a punt return for a touchdown or whatever, he was generally most of this season their biggest threat to score at any point. Doesn't even play offense.
That's crazy.
Yes, exactly. and he went out with a couple games to go in the season. Yeah. He was out for the year. So they were just overmatched. It was just a talent thing. And that's kind of what we expected.
When announcers are excited to see a team get a first down in the second half, you know they're struggling.
So, yes, I agree. So a little bit of a funny story there for you,
All right.
if you'll indulge me.
Yes.
There was a bar or kind of a golf place, think similar to Top Golf.
Okay.
Place out in Iowa that offered free drinks. During the game, everybody could drink free and keep drinking free until Iowa scored a touchdown.
Oh, no.
Yes. So
they sold a lot of drinks.
Yeah.
Well, not sold. Gave away a lot of drinks.
I think there was a lot of drunk-ass Iowa fans at that Iowa bar that night.
Well, it makes sense.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
You get shut out in the Big Ten championship game. What else are you going to do?
And you're drinking free beer, and you just go on to forget you're an Iowa fan.
Having a good time one way or another. So
yeah. So that was that game. It was a rather easy pick for us. Another winner. So I started out 2-0 on my picks.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
And then we get to the ACC championship game, the raggedy ass ACC. You got Louisville and Florida State. Florida State started their third string quarterback. Louisville's head coach Jeff Brom comes from Purdue. Mm-hmm. You figure he's going to come up with a way to get some kind of offense.
Right.
Where they can outscore Florida State's offense with their third string quarterback that has just not been good since their starter went out.
Yeah.
The game actually started a lot like we thought it would.
Mm-hmm.
We thought it'd be a close game. I said I think that maybe Louisville. It was the pick was Louisville plus 2.5 points. So
right.
I said I think maybe Louisville could even win this outright.
Right.
It's going to be a low scoring game, so I took them plus the points. At one point it was. The game, I think it was 10-6. Louisville was driving, had a first and goal, had a chance, and their quarterback Plummer, he's got a guy cutting across the end zone. All he's got to do is put it out a little bit in front of him, maybe a little high, like head height, chest height to head height, a little bit in front of him, and it's a touchdown. They take the lead. Instead, where does he throw it? 3 feet behind him and low, basically right into the breadbasket of the defender who's trailing the guy. And he was a little bit underneath. He kind of undercut the route a little bit. But, I mean, really all you had to do is put that ball out in front of him a little bit. Game changer right there. Yeah. Interception. That was probably Louisville's best chance to score a touchdown. After that, and really Florida State's defense was impressive. You got to give them a lot of credit. The way that they played without their starter and they were really on their third string quarterback, and that quarterback got hurt in the game. They had to put a knee brace on him. There was a question at that point if he was even going to be able to continue. True freshman kid. So they just didn't have any offense, but an amazing defensive performance by Florida State. Yeah. But honestly, I really thought Louisville, the way the season they've had, I thought that they would be able to beat a team that was on their third string quarterback and was just not looking good.
Yep.
And they came up woefully short. It just reinforces to me my perception of the ACC is you basically have Clemson and Florida State. Duke had a good season this year. Louisville was a good story, whatever. But you have those two programs that are the cream of the crop, and the rest, the rest of the teams in that conference are kind of just.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't even know if I want to say okay.
Oh,
some of them are okay. Some of them are hot garbage.
Okay. Well,
and that's where that conference is. And I really in those teams, the Clemson to Florida States, they're looking to get out of that conference. We're going to talk a little bit more later.
Yeah.
We're going to do another episode on the college football playoff and whatever. But really, just a disappointing game by Louisville. This was our only miss of the week. I had to go and pick the ACC just for fun. I didn't want to just pick 2 games, and it is what it is. So if our viewers forgive me for picking the ACC. I won't do it again, but I went 2-1 in the week, so not bad.
Well, hey, let's get into my picks. Okay. So I do want to give a shout out. We have a viewer that really follows our picks. The Trailhead,
yes,
I believe is his username. He asked us to run the table, Steve, and we were damn close to running the table this week.
Freaking Louisville.
But well, hey, I think anybody will take a 6-1 week.
Yeah.
So 2-1. I went 4-0. And we already went over the Washington pick that I hit. So let's get to the Mountain West, my conference that I love the most.
All right, let's do it.
Boise versus UNLV, a game we were both really looking forward to. And it started out just as a daggone barn burner. I mean, we're just scoring points left and right. I was wondering if either defense was going to wake up. Boise scores, or I should say, Boise... 4 touchdowns are scored on Boise's first 4 possessions. Now, 3 of them were for Boise, and 1 of them was for UNLV.
Right.
But 4 touchdowns on Boise's first 4 possessions. The game ends 44-20. Just completely got out of hand for UNLV.
Yeah.
Clearly, I don't want to say it was a Michigan-Iowa type of game, but clearly there was a difference in talent level here. Yeah. Kids were able to rise up at the Boise, and UNLV just wasn't quite there yet. They've had a great season. I don't want to, crap on what the season that they've had, but clearly the better team, the deeper team, the more talented team here from start to finish won this game. Boise had 527 yards compared to UNLV 298. First downs, Boise had 23, UNLV had 16. There was a bit of a turnover fest. There's 2 for Boise, 3 for UNLV, mostly all coming from the quarterbacks of both teams. Yes. I know you're going to want to get into that. Hold off for one second, Steve.
Okay.
But Green went 12 of 15, 226 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. That was that pick 6 I mentioned on their third possession. But he ran the ball 8 times for 90 yards and 2 touchdowns. Really, there were 3 huge plays that he had. 2 of them, 2 large pass plays, 1 to Bowens. The guy fell down at the, 10-yard line. Should have been an easy bomb touchdown.
Yep.
Pretty much wide open. The other one to Bolt, again, pretty much wide open, just getting behind the secondary and just get the ball somewhere in these guys' vicinities. They're going to catch it. Bolt did get the touchdown there. But of his 226 yards, 100 of that came on those 2 catches. Yeah. Wide open receivers behind the secondary. Yeah. Completely busted coverage. Maeva, on the other hand, rough day for the redshirt freshman. 15 of 29, only 166 yards, no touchdown passes, and 2 interceptions. So he definitely struggled again. You would I hate to say you would expect it, but huge stage for a freshman there. He's had a great season, and he just doesn't have the talent around him, a.k.a. Genty and Helani.
Yep.
You could see who his number 1 target was in Ricky White. Really leaned on him early, and it was working. I texted you. I said, Boise better cover this guy because it's almost all they have. Not all, but almost all they have.
Yep.
They were kind of letting him run wild there a little bit, and they did obviously. They shored that up.
An adjustment.
Shored that up pretty quickly. White ended up with 6 receptions for 86 yards. DeJesus 6 receptions for 55 yards. On the defensive side, Boise had 2 sacks, 6 tackled for losses. UNLV had 1 sack, 7 tackled for losses. And we got razzed a little bit from some Boise fans. I'm going to let you chime in here, Steve, specifically about Green.
Yeah.
And he just showed what he is, and he also showed what he isn't. I think overall his big passes were to open receivers. And I said to you at the time, just throw it when they're open. Yes. If they're not open, you don't have to thread the needle. I will say he made some really nice throws in the second half, threading the needle.
Yep.
And so he can do it,
right.
But he can also throw those pick 6s. And the pick 6 that he threw wasn't that hard of a read.
No.
He clearly was just watching the one D-back and the one receiver,
Yes.
has no idea there's a guy in the middle of the field where he's probably going to be playing in zone coverage, and throws it right to the guy. And that's where, you called him a liability. We clearly got some people that didn't like that. His assets are, he does have the arm.
Yeah.
He's a super solid athlete. I mean, the run that he had for the touchdown was just crazy. Juking people, running all over the place. He's 6'6", whatever he is. So super good athlete, but he does tend to still have these just misreads on some of this stuff. But I don't want to focus on that. I want to focus on the fact that I took Boise at -2.5.
Yep.
They blow it out of the water with a 24-point win. They're off to the bowl against UCLA now, rightfully so. I think that'll be a fantastic game. The LA Bowl. Really happy it's Boise versus UCLA. I think they could put a
Great
number on.
opportunity for
Yeah, I think they could put a number on them. So anyway, I'll stop talking. What do you have to say, Steve?
So, it's two major points here. One, great pick by you. You're absolutely right. Boise was the better team, more talent, deeper, more experienced,
Yes.
I will say.
Yes.
Maeva is UNLV's most important player. Young kid, has had a great season. Was just under duress. The boys, they were getting after him, and so it is what it is. They were the better team. And the way that they've played the second half of the season, especially since they made their coaching change, which I know we're going to talk about in another video. They've just been awesome. They've played great. You were exactly right. Pretty much everything you said about them in this game. And Green played well. He played well. He played good enough for them to beat UNLV. Played.
I think he played a little better than that.
Well, he played well. Now, what I'll say is, I said before the game, Green is a liability. And I 100% stick by that. He showed that he was a liability. Yes, he can make those good plays. And luckily this game, just the overall talent level of Boise was just better, and they just overall played better than UNLV.
Yeah.
Wasn't a tight game. Early in the game, when it was a tight game, he throws that horrendous pick six.
It was bad.
Really bad. No excuse for it. He does that once or twice a game, darn near every game. That happened to be run back for a touchdown, but that's him, and he is a liability for that. If you have your quarterback, basically, he's going to throw 2 dead-on interceptions per game. Yeah. Maybe the defender drops one now and then or whatever, but he's going to do that. He's a liability, and I really wonder if you switched, if you switched Maeva and put Maeva running this Boise team and put Green over on UNLV, I wonder how their stat lines would look. Just kind of something to throw out there. But like I said, you should get a lot of credit for this. And Boise, as a team, they should get a lot of credit. The way they've responded, they could have thrown away their season. We called them a huge disappointment the first half of the season. The way they responded down the stretch was just absolutely awesome. Their new coach, their interim coach, whatever you want to call him, has led them really well. They've been the best team in the Mountain West the second half of the season. They beat the other team that really was looking like the best team in the second half of the season, or really the whole season, UNLV. And now I'm happy for them. They get to go to an awesome bowl.
Yes.
Now, they're going to play UCLA. UCLA, now, I think UCLA's defensive coordinator is leaving, and you never know with opt-outs and whatever.
Yep.
UCLA has a legit defense.
Yes, they do.
Very good. They made Oregon State look silly earlier this season. They have a really legit defense. So that's going to be a hard matchup, and I think Boise has the chance to win. They can win this game, and they can make a statement, but they need Green to play more disciplined, okay? If he throws a pick six in that game, I don't see Boise beating UCLA. Mm-hmm. If he throws more than one interception in that game, I don't see Boise beating UCLA, but that is what it is. Congrats to Boise. Great pick by you.
And I had to wear my blue shirt.
Yeah.
It might be the last time I wear it for a while, but I had to stick her on for Boise. We didn't even talk about Genty. 21 carries, 153 yards and a touchdown. He's now on the national stage. Yeah. You and I were on him, watching him in the very first couple games of the season. Phenomenal talent. Yeah. Helani's great, too. Don't get me wrong. Everybody was big on Helani coming into the season, but Genty's just amazing. I hope he sticks it out here with Boise for a little while and doesn't hit the portal. But
really good 1-2 punch. If you told me that if someone made the argument that they have a top 5 1-2 running back combo in the country, not just in the Mountain West or group of 5, whatever you want to call them, in the country, I think I would listen and say, you know what, you're probably right.
Yeah. So real quick on that, I had taken Boise to both win the regular season championship and the Mountain West championship game back in our preview video. So I have to go like this real quick. I picked them. They won it. So we'll move on from that. So
that was looking bananas for a while.
It was looking a little rough.
They came through for you.
Yeah. So the other two that I picked, two teams I have been on for a while now, and they both came home for me here with the American and the Sun Belt. I want to start with Troy versus Appy State, another team that Troy's just the better team. Now, Appy State stuck around for a while. It was 21-17 after 3 quarters. Was tight. But then Troy goes off and scores 28 points. They've done this before in other games that I've picked them. You're a little worried it's close, and they just take off in the 4th quarter. They did have a defensive touchdown. I talked about how strong their defense is there. I also talked about watch out for Kiami Vital.
Yes.
And I said, the Appy's defense is a little suspect when it comes to rushers and run defense. Here's his stat line, Steve.
I know he had a good game.
26 carries.
Okay.
233 yards. 5 touchdowns.
Oh, my Lord.
Gashing touchdowns. I mean, just opening a hole and pulling away. So, he was the offensive player of the year for the Sun Belt, rightfully so. Probably one of the best players, if not the best player in the Sun Belt. He showed you why. Just craziness. So they win the game 49-23. I had Troy at minus 6.5. So that 28-point 4th quarter just completely, blew it out of the water. So a great win there. Was happy for that one. The other one, SMU versus Tulane. Yes. I've been telling everybody Tulane's going to lose. It's coming. And a little worried because SMU lost their quarterback in the Navy game, broke his leg. So they're on their backup or their second string. And I know we had some people kind of question that in the comments. You still high on SMU? Yes, I'm still high on SMU. And they win this game 26-14. I took them getting 3.5 points. Screw it, they don't need points. And I said I like them to win this game straight up. But as a line guy, as a spread guy, I'm going to take the spread there. They do win it straight up. Tulane tied it 14-14 in the 3rd. After that, SMU just rattles off field goals. Bloop, 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 26-14. And really, other than, and it started out very similar to a week ago when Tulane forces 5 turnovers. Another game against the UTSA Roadrunners that I thought UTSA could upset Tulane. And this game starts exactly like that with a daggone fumble. Tulane recovers it. They score a touchdown in the first, less than 10 seconds of the game. And I go, you can't be on it. Like, this is happening to me again. Are you serious? So they score that touchdown. After that, in the first less than 10 seconds of the game, they score one more time the entire game. One more touchdown. SMU, 396 yards. Tulane, 269 yards. First downs, SMU 21, Tulane 12. I mean, they did what I expected them to do. I'm going to throw this out there and just say we're going to do another episode on bowls and college football playoffs. In my opinion, SMU should be in the New Year's Six Bowl, not Liberty. Liberty didn't, I hate to say this, they didn't play anybody to the level of SMU. They beat Tulane. They lost to Oklahoma by, I think it was maybe 2 touchdowns-ish in the beginning of the year. In my opinion, the Americans just an overall better conference than Conference USA. I think SMU got the shaft here. I think they should be in a New Year's Six Bowl. But anyway. So,
good pick by you. We both were on SMU scoring more points. And like you said, if you take away that first fumble, it was, other than that, it was basically domination, from SMU side and every other aspect.
Tulane's offense could barely get anything going. Now, they did get that touchdown, especially in the first half. Tulane's offense, when you looked at the stat lines and yards, they couldn't do anything in the first half offensively. So, props to SMU. I think you should be in New Year's Six, but I'm not on the CFP yet. So, maybe someday.
Not yet,
So, anyway, hey, we're going to come out with another episode. Actually, it's probably already out right now on bowls, specifically the college football playoffs. We want to give you our thoughts on the 4 teams that made it into the playoff. We want to review some of the bowls as well. And we just came out with another PAC-12 video as well, so you can go back and check that out. And as we've told you before, we are going to be calling every bowl game this year. We'll get that started here in a few weeks. And we are going to try to give you guys a heads up. We're going to try to do our first live episode picking the first week of bowl games. We're right now looking maybe at the 14th. Is that the right date, Steve?
I think so. Basically, 2 weeks from this coming Wednesday.
Yes. So we'll let you know for sure. But I know we got some people that I'd love to hear from if they can get on it. We'll let you know what time. We'll let you know exactly the date. We're looking to try to go live on one of these episodes. We'd love to have you guys on and comment back and forth. So, hey, with that, we thank you for watching. We'll see you next time on the Big Mountain.